Welcome to another episode of Life Journeys. My name is Georgina Njogu. I'm going to be speaking to a lovely lady who is going to be sharing her journey with us of living with HIV since birth. But before we begin, I want to thank our lovely host, Gracia Gardens in Kilimani, for this beautiful location. Karibu sana. But I'd like you to describe yourself. Who is Doreen?
Well, Doreen is a person living with HIV.
Yes.
I've lived with HIV my whole life, so it's not. That's why I say yes, I have HIV.
Yes.
So to bring that unapologeticness, the unashamed version, because HIV is also attached to a lot of shame, to just show the world that yes, I have HIV. Yes, I exist. Yes, we exist as people living with HIV. We are normal, we are healthy, we are happy, and we live our full lives.
Okay.
Yeah.
You've said you've lived with HIV your whole life.
Yeah.
It's since birth, right?
Yes.
How did your parents first discover that their child has HIV?
So my mom is the one who has HIV. My dad did not have HIV.
Okay.
So my mom is still alive. My dad passed on a few years back. So when I was 8 years, I had a very problematic childhood because I was always sick. So when I was 8, I had another infection. So I was taken again to hospital.
Yeah.
Then they tested me. They were like, those opportunistic infections that are very specific. So
Yeah.
they were like, can we test her for HIV? Because also HIV that time was a big deal. So my parents were like, yeah. So they tested me. And then the test came out positive. And you see that time the test was not even coming like back instantly. You had to wait 2-3 days. So while I was waiting because I was hospitalized, the test came back positive. I was hospitalized for a month, came out, life continued. But I knew I am sick, but they did not really tell me exactly what is wrong.
Yes.
So I also couldn't kind of understand that this was such a hectic diagnosis that they had been given, because the thing about African parents is they take so much things with a lot of resilience.
Yes.
So sometimes you might not really, they might be suffering, yes, but they might not
they're just
show it
quiet
to you as a child. Yeah.
Okay. And how was your childhood after you've been diagnosed? How was your childhood with the other siblings who are now negative? Then now there's you who is a bit different.
Yeah.
How was that?
Well, that was also slightly problematic because you see that whole statement of take her home, love her, take care of her, because the doctors were like, we are not sure if she'll pass like 5 years from now, so just take care of her. So the love now I was always bombarded with too much love.
Yeah.
It's not that I was not loved before, but now it was
Excessive. Yeah.
And when my brother died, it even became
More.
Like any time I will be sick like this, they will just panic, and now everything will stop in the household. So also my siblings kind of felt like, why are you people overloving her? Like, this is too much.
Oh, they also didn't know?
No, they knew, but I don't think they understood why. Like, yes, in as much as they knew that, yes, our sibling is HIV positive, they did not understand why now the attention is kind of thrown, all of it to me, and not to them. Like, it was not a balanced kind of equation.
And life in school, did like your schoolmates know, classmates, and how did they treat you, even the society? Was it any different?
Well, my schoolmates didn't know, because also I didn't know.
Okay.
My teachers also didn't know, and I missed school a lot. So the teachers also never used to understand, why am I missing school too much? In fact, I think they thought I hate school. Well, technically I did not like school, but
Okay.
but I think they just thought I just don't like school,
Yeah.
and that is why I don't show up, because also my mom had never told them that this child has HIV.
When did you first now realize what is ailing you?
The first time was when I was 12, but this I overheard my doctor and my mom talking, and I was like, why are they saying that I have HIV? Also, remember, we'd been taught about HIV in school, and so the way the teacher at school had phrased it versus these people saying that I'm HIV positive, I was like, I don't understand this mathematics, it's not making sense. But I just left the hospital with questions and I never asked.
Yes.
So I was like, maybe I misheard, because these people told me when I reached 12 years old, I am going to be okay. That is what, every time we went to the doctors, that is what they will say. Now, once you hit 12 years, you're going to be fine. Everything is going to go back to normal. You're going to stop coming to hospital frequently. So to me, I was like, but HIV is not that. That is not what. In fact, in school, they said HIV. Once you get HIV, you die.
Yes.
So I was so confused. So now, but I didn't ask. So I just let it go, and we continued going to hospital as normal until the next year. Now my mom fell sick, so the opportunistic infections now became more hectic on her health, and she had TB and she was very ill. So well, during that time she was in ICU, and she now went through a lot health-wise. So when she was finally discharged, she came home and she told me we need to go to hospital again. So me going to hospital was already normal. So I was like, okay, fine. So we went to the hospital, tested a lot, and then the doctors now sat both of us down, and they told me, Doreen, you have HIV. You got it from your mom. We really can't start saying, did you get it during birth, during breastfeeding? We really cannot tell when, but we know that the primary source of transmission was from your mom. So to me, it was not a big deal. So I was like, okay, fine, sign me up. So I started treatment there and then. And also now the opportunistic infections also went down, because once you're you're stable on medication, most of the opportunistic infections just clear on their own. So we continued with life, but now the challenge came in because that time I was in class 8 and I was going to Form 1 the next year. And my mom was still very hesitant because all the schools that called me were boarding schools. There is no, I had not even been on treatment for 6 months, and then she was like, there's no way you're going to boarding school. So the first 2 years of high school, I was in a day school.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how, they also didn't know, they didn't get to know, right?
No, in high school, nobody knew I had HIV.
Then 2 years later, you went to a private boarding school.
To a boarding school, yeah. Boarding school shared spaces.
Yes.
So these other kids would see me with this medication, and they will be like, oh my God, those treatments are so huge. So my parents had told me, even when I was told by the doctor to say that I have HIV, they told me I should never tell anyone. So also my parents had told me, if anybody asks, tell them you have a heart condition. So I went with that, and they were always like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. So how do you feel? Now I'm there giving them symptoms that they don't understand. So it was that easy for me.
Yeah.
Sometimes they will even be like, did you remember to take your medication today? And I'm like, yes. So most of the people I went to high school with was shocked when they found out later that I was actually living with HIV the whole time.
Now you've completed high school.
Yeah.
You, as normal, you go to college campus. And I know now life in campus is a little different.
Yes.
There are boys involved, love life, and now you have to be a bit more independent.
Yes.
Was it any different for you?
So even before I joined campus, my first problem started with, I have now completed high school.
Yeah.
Well, for us millennials, when we used to finish school, there was that whole
gap
1 year
year.
that we just stayed home doing nothing. So that year showed me now the realities of people and how people feel about people living with HIV.
Yeah.
And now I started feeling the same exact way that people feel about living with HIV. And now I'm like, this is not even a good thing. Even though I'm taking this medication, I am kind of tired of them, because everyday pills is also very hectic.
Yeah, for sure.
And now the reality of stigma hit me. So, and now this is self-stigma, because earlier on, when I was first diagnosed with HIV, my parents told the whole family that Doreen is HIV positive, now we just want your love and support. But not all of them were loving and supporting.
Even your family?
Yes.
Yes.
So some of them, especially the relatives, had me eating from different utensils, disinfecting my clothes. So when they used to do that, my mind, I was like, they just don't like me. So my mind never told me to get off HIV.
Yes.
So by the time now I'm finishing high school and I'm remembering all these things these people were doing, I was like, okay, it's because of the HIV. Like now it makes sense, because I was just like, how can people be so mean that I have my own cups? And I don't understand why.
Is this extended family?
Yeah, this is extended family.
Did your parents know?
Yeah, my parents knew.
But there's not much they could
So
do.
when they knew now, when I explained that to them, they kind of now started shielding me also away from from the relatives as well. So it became a little bit hectic there. So Now, when I finished, when I came to that realization that people look at people living with HIV in a very strange way, they don't understand that people can, first of all, you can get HIV from mother to child.
Yes.
So everything about HIV is sexualized. So nobody knows, like most people tend to ignore the mother to child transmission. They tend to ignore the people who inject drugs. So to them it's, you have HIV, you got it sexually, that's it.
Yes.
And it's not just sexually like one partner, it is you have 50
multiple
partners.
Yeah.
That is how you got it. So when that hit me, I stopped taking treatment. And when I stopped taking treatment, I ended up now searching for a cure in my own way, because I was like, I need a cure. I need to get out of this situation because there is no way. So when I looked, that was the time when the story of Babu Loliondo came on TV. And I convinced my mom, I told her, he's saying he can heal everything.
Yeah.
So let's go there. So we did a whole trip all the way to Tanzania. We queued like the rest of the people. We took our cab, we came back to Nairobi. So I stopped taking treatment. Okay, both my mom and I, we stopped taking treatment. But my mom stopped for only 3 months. Me, I stopped for a whole 2 years. So the first year, I'd go to hospital, get my ARVs, come and leave them at home. The second year, now, because we always get, the doctors always do a viral load test. The first viral load they did after I stopped going to Loliondo came back to 70,000 copies. A person on treatment is not supposed to have that high viral load. So they started saying it's either your treatment is failing or you're getting drug resistance, so we need to do more, maybe change your medication.
Because they think you're taking the drugs.
Yeah, they think I'm taking the drugs, so that they're coming up with solutions. And I'm also telling them I'm taking the drugs.
Yeah.
So remember, I've not told them that I stopped. I am convincing them I am on this treatment. So they told me, you will need to figure out a way to handle you and maybe take you. Now, the thing about medications, we have 3 levels. So we have first line, which I'm currently on. We have second line, where in case first line fails due to one reason or another, you're taken to second line. Then we have third line. So they were like, we'll take you to second line because maybe first line is not working for you. The thing is, the higher you go treatment-wise, the more options are reduced for you.
Yeah.
And sometimes you might find that some of, like third line regimen, sometimes might face a little bit of ARV, what is it called, shortages. Sometimes you don't have like the regimen completely, all of it.
Yes.
So that means that the higher you go, the more you are ruining your chances.
How do they determine which line you belong to?
They determine based on
the viral load.
The viral load, one, and also they do a treatment resistance test. So if the resistance test comes back positive, then they assume that that particular set of drugs you're on is not working for you, so they are going to change the medication again. So anyway, second year now, I stopped going to street hospital completely. Now I am now a hospital dropout. And I stopped going to hospital. They kept sending social workers, the counselors at the clinic. I was like, I will come. I'm just a little bit tired. Just small holiday. But then it's so that I was healthy. I was always having one issue or another. Until now, one day I had this cold sores on my mouth. I was so sick. I got pneumonia. Very many bad things happened. So
at the same time?
At the same time. Because I think now the viral load just went over and the opportunistic infections just, decided to show up. So I was taken back to hospital again. The doctor was like, I thought they told you when you start treatment it's for life. Why did you stop? Also, again, I didn't tell the doctors that I went to Loliondo. Because also Loliondo was like a very problematic course and people died actually during that time. So that time my viral load had gone up. It was now like around 120,000 copies. So my doctor was like, you have to go back to treatment. But now you see they have to treat the opportunistic infection first, then they treat
the HIV.
So that is also part of the reason why when you asked about the love life, but it was also part of the triggers of this whole stopping medication thing. Because now I realized that you can't just disclose to someone.
Had you tried?
I had tried. I tried once, and then the person was like, no, we can just be friends. So that was part of the trigger. And that happened a couple of times after. But now when I realized that I need to shift my mindset and accept this thing, that this is how the rest of my life is going to be. And unless I come to that part of acceptance, it's going to take me a very long time to even handle love, handle school, handle my dreams and goals. So it's just going to take me too much time if I keep focusing on I have HIV, I have HIV.
Yes.
When I turned 23, by that time I was doing because I went to college, I was doing community development and social work. And then, so when I was doing my internship, my boss knew at the time. Then, so one time we were doing an outreach, and she told me, just tell people you have HIV. And I looked at her, I was like, hey. Then when they told me that I have HIV, they did not say I must tell people.
Yes.
So now here you are telling me to tell strangers. And also because the first stigma I was shown was specifically from my own relatives.
Yeah.
So it became a little bit tricky.
Yes.
But now I said it's fine. So I disclosed the first time, and people are like, oh my God, you don't even look like you have HIV. And I'm like, well, I take it at risk for that reason. But yeah, here we are. So we continued. I continued with, I did that. Then she was like, we can actually do this thing a little bit bigger. So I was like, you see, this was a small group.
Yeah.
Now you want me to tell
To do bigger.
random people, and I was like, I think we will do it. Don't worry about it. We will plan and do it. Later on, I don't know, one day I was just seated somewhere, because she told me to write down my story and give it to her. So I tried to write it down, and I was like, this thing is hard. I wrote it like 5 times, and I was like, I can't do this thing. So I was reading a newspaper at the office, and then I came across a story of some lady. I was like, maybe I should just write to an editor. Probably they are not going to see the email, but I can write. It's like venting to somebody who does not know it. So I just wrote a very long email, and I told them, I look forward to hearing from you. While at the back of my mind, I was like, I hope she does not respond. Now, unfortunately, this one, she responded. And now I was shocked, because the thing about my story is it's not just mine alone.
Yes.
It involves my parents, it involves my siblings. That means that if I share, I'm not only sharing my story, I'm also sharing my family's story. So now I was like, okay, this is hectic, so I have to ask if the parents are okay. So my mom was fine with it, my dad was not, because for a very long time my dad was stigmatized by association. So people never actually believed that he did not have HIV. So now he was like, no, we cannot tell people that you have HIV. But my mom was like, no, you just tell them. So because the interview was already scheduled, I said, okay, fine. So I went, I said it. At first it was supposed to go on print, so I was a little bit anxious about that. And then the lady was like, you know what, you're just going to do digital. So that time digital was not huge.
Yes.
So I was like, fewer people are going to watch it, so I'm good. And then they shared it on the Facebook page from their website. Now people were tagging me, and they're saying, what is wrong with the media? Why are they doing this? Why are they spoiling your name? The people who now had as mutual friend on Facebook. They're like, we don't understand. Since when did you start getting HIV?
Yeah.
Now the people I went to high school with are also shocked, because they're like,
it's a heart problem.
what is going on? So then now I even had to deactivate my Facebook page that day. I was like, oh my God, this was not the reaction I was expecting. But then another thing I did was I gave them my email. So at the very end, they left my email. So everybody who read that article was like, so now I was receiving emails back to back. And that is actually part of the reason why now I started the digital advocacy that I am in.
What were the emails saying?
Because most of the emails were people living with HIV, but the only person who knows that they have HIV is them and the doctors. So the family members, they don't know, the children, they don't know. Some people even are with partners, and the partners don't know that they have HIV. So they just kept coming, and they're like, oh my God, your story touched me so much. Like, there are other people like us out there. And part of the reason why this has happened over the years is because when I was younger and we used to go to hospital, there were those support groups we used to go to.
Yeah.
So we had a community. So as time went by, the programs that were supporting the support groups kind of just fizzled out.
Yeah.
So that also made me now feel overwhelmed. Because to me, when I was in my own journey, everybody knew about my HIV status before I even knew that I had HIV. So that was something that was a little bit very strange to me. And now these are other people who found out they have HIV on their own, and they don't have the support or the community that they need. And now that is actually now how I ended up now starting doing digital advocacy and sharing my story.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for how long have you been now open out there? How long?
For 9 years.
9 years.
Yeah.
During these 9 years, do you think that we as a community have progressed to the extent of accepting people for who they are? Do you think we have grown, or there's still some work that needs to be done?
It's sad that it's 2024 and people don't even know how HIV is transmitted.
Yes.
That when they see Doreen posting, they're like, no, you when you are having sexual relationships with
you must have been promiscuous
people, you did not include us, why are you sharing your story with us? So sometimes when I read some of the comments that come on my end, and people want to know, how did you get HIV? Because for a long time, after a while, when I came to realize that every time I say I was born with HIV, people will be like, oh my God, sorry, it was not your fault. But then does that mean that a person who sexually got HIV, how was that their fault? Does that mean that a person who is injecting drugs, that was their fault? They woke up and they said, today I feel like eating HIV. No, that was not the thought process. So with that, I kind of just say I am living with HIV.
Yeah.
So now, unfortunately, people want to still know, how did you get it? Did you get it sexually? Did you get it from birth? If it's from birth, then they're like, oh, sorry about that.
Yeah.
But if it's not, then so nowadays I just mislead people.
They might treat you differently.
Yes. So and we every time I see, especially with the work I do on social media, there's some people, there's a crowd of people that is willing to unlearn and relearn the HIV we've known over the years. There's another crowd that is like, you and your HIV, we don't need to know. And part of the reason why we are still yet to address the HIV stigma is we cannot have a conversation about HIV just openly. That is a problem we have. That is something I see every time, that people are saying, why must you tell us? Why must you show us? Why must it be in our faces? If we actually continued the conversations around HIV, we probably would have dealt with the stigma way sooner.
Yeah.
Because when you deal with stigma, you deal with testing. People are willing to test. When you deal with stigma, people are willing to start treatment. When you deal with stigma, people are willing to openly talk about the HIV status to their family members. Forget even about lovers and friends.
Yes.
Just
your
family
close
members.
family, yes.
Some people can't even tell their family members that they're living with HIV because there's a shame attached to HIV. So most of the time people try to say, oh, you're just out here being loud. And I'm like, no, because I want to get rid of that shame related to HIV.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, we still have stigma in 2024. Unfortunately, people still diagnose, or rather group people living with HIV, that you people are promiscuous, and that is how you got HIV. And unfortunately, people are still, they still have these misconceptions. Like the HIV that back then, where people will not shake hands with you or be in a room with you, has changed. Now it is the judgment that comes with it, to shame you that, hey, yeah, you are living with HIV, so you must keep quiet about it. Just live silently with it. And then social media is even worse, because I get what is it called, visibility in other countries that are not even my own. So when I do that, then the other countries even show more on the amount of stigma that they have in their countries. And you're like, yo, this is hectic, you see. And sometimes even when I say that I was born with HIV and I didn't start treatment early, and they're like, why? So they forget that the HIV story started from a point of no ARVs. It was literally hopes and vibes. Go home, and let
pray,
them
hope.
love you, let them pray and hope. So the thing is, I had an African mother who will try everything. So you are not feeling well, some random concussion shows up and they're like, now you must take this for 7 days. And they're like, why? So you see, we have yet to accept that HIV is still real. And I know that as time has gone by, other health conditions have come up. And people will even tell you, but it's better than this other disease,
Yeah.
it is better than... But the thing is, if I show up today with diabetes, people are not going to say, oh my God, how did you get
Yeah.
it? Oh, you were... Okay, I think our common misconception is you were taking too much sugar. But you see, like if I show up today, nobody is going to look at me sideways. But with HIV, you're going to be asked questions.
Yeah.
Why can't I just say, I'm living with HIV, and people are like, oh my God, that is so awesome. That is nice. There are countries that so far have already accepted the HIV situation, and some of them, people are taking treatment and they're good. But there are countries that still, it's a very hidden thing. And in Kenya, it just, sometimes you read comments and be like, why? You were like, why? What? Like, explain to me your thought process. And then, unfortunately, it's not like something that you can understand. But part of the reason why I keep insisting that I have to be shameless about my HIV diagnosis is so that other people living with HIV like me can get that confidence that, hey, Doreen is living her normal life, she is living her best life, and life moves on. The life does not stop at your HIV diagnosis.
Yeah, for sure. You've talked about Kenya and other nations. I think, would you know the state of Kenya as a country in terms of numbers of HIV infections throughout the years? Have we made progress? Has it decreased, or it's yet to be known?
Well, it has decreased over the years because recently NSDCC posted that we have decreased our new infections by 78%. But there are specific populations that are adding to those new HIV infections, most of them being young people. And this number can go to zero. We can be like 100%. We have reduced new HIV infections. Why? Because now in 2024, HIV is very preventable. We have PEP for when you've already been exposed to HIV. Then within 72 hours, visit a health facility. They give you your PEP. We have PrEP, where you take it 7 days before sex, and for as long as you are at risk of getting infected. And now Kenya has promised next year that we're going to have the injectable version of PrEP. So you see, that is making progress. We have now people living with HIV who have an undetectable viral load cannot transmit HIV sexually to their partners. We have that as well. So it's not about, we are living in a point where HIV as a virus is very preventable. But young people are still adding to more new HIV infections because they are the cohort with the highest burden.
Yes.
And when you look at it, you ask yourself, is it because we led HIV with fear in the early years of HIV, that now that fear only hits people when they have already been exposed? And then now, because imagine if somebody knew that even though I've been exposed to HIV, I can rush to the hospital and get PEP. But unfortunately, we don't have that. Some of these thoughts come later. Or somebody knew that, hey, for example, I am living in Nairobi, I have 7 boyfriends. I do not want to use protection with them. Well, there are other things that exposes you to. But if you're on your PrEP, you know very well that you are not going to get HIV. We now have the PrEP ring that is basically for women, because also in this particular group I'm telling you of young people, young women are leading the numbers of new HIV
Why
infections.
do you think that is so? Especially, why is it the younger generation, and why is it women?
Well, it is women because unfortunately, biologically, women are more at risk of getting HIV than men. So one man can actually infect 6 women with HIV, but one woman cannot infect 6 men with HIV. And also empowering the healthcare worker, because another issue comes in with most of these young women and young people in general don't like going to hospitals because they'll walk in on a Monday morning, you're going for PEP, and then the healthcare worker is looking at you like, what did you do over the weekend? Kwa nini huku amuku test? So now you are being questioned for something that, remember, there's a shame that carries HIV. So now here is a healthcare worker also
Victimizing
questioning
you, yes.
So you feel like, I want to go home. So most of them kind of restrain themselves from going to healthcare facilities because the healthcare facilities are not friendly. Or a healthcare worker will just go give you medication, then come online and make a whole video about it. And that is like that confidentiality part. I wish healthcare workers would actually be the safe space they're supposed to be, because they really, in 2024, they're currently not all of them, but a good number of them are using these HIV exposures that they are encountering to come and villainize the people exposed to HIV and the people living with HIV.
You've mentioned about the work that needs to be done towards Vision 20?
No, towards ending AIDS as a public health threat by 2030.
By 2030. It's like a vision for 2030.
Yes.
What is the work that needs to be done?
I think so far we have treatment. So we have ARVs, that is covered. We can continue advocating for better treatment, because one thing about treatment, it keeps changing over time. We have prevention, wide range, better prevention is even coming up, so we're good on that. Now what we have not yet addressed is the stigma related to HIV.
Yeah.
Because that stigma is equals to shame. That shame prevents people from coming to test. Remember, right now you can test for HIV in your home. Comfort of your home, just 20 minutes, you know you're positive or negative. But now, people still are reluctant about knowing that their HIV status. We also now have the whole aspect of people failing to disclose their HIV status, especially to people that they're interested in romantically one way or another. So unfortunately, these barriers are brought about through the stigma, and the stigma is fueled by the shame. So we have yet to normalize HIV conversations. We are yet to normalize HIV conversations among our family members, among our friends, among our romantic relationships, because that is, I find people just telling you, I'm dating someone, but I do not know how to tell them that I have HIV. So we are yet to normalize the HIV conversation. And until I can tell you, Georgina, I am HIV positive. And then you're not like, huh? You don't look like you have HIV. Okay, how did you get it? You see, those kind of questions. Like, you're just like, okay, fine. And life moves on. You're taking treatment? Yeah, good. Like, you see that simple. In case you have questions, you're like, can I ask you a few questions? And they're not disrespectful. So unfortunately, there are people who don't even know that. I said this earlier, that there are other ways of getting HIV that do not include sex. You see, there are people who do not know ways that don't have, that you cannot get HIV from. There are people who still believe in misconceptions a lot. We also have one of the biggest people who kind of discourage people about HIV are also religious leaders who are trying to shame people living with HIV who are among their congregants by either trying to pray for them, heal them. Like, they are yet to be comfortable with accepting that, yeah, our people are living with HIV, they are congregants, and life moves on.
Yes.
You see, that we are yet to bring that conversation that I can walk into a church and speak to the congregants and tell them, hey, my name is Doreen, I am living with HIV, I am here to talk to you about HIV. And God loves us all. We are yet to do that, because I have spoken to young people in church, but the church was very specific. They told me, do not tell them about other things, just speak abstinence. And the thing is, I know abstinence is working for some young people,
yes,
but it's not working for everyone. So when it comes to HIV prevention, there's something we're championing for called the basket of choice. There are choices in there. Let people pick the choice that works for them. And then now you can talk openly about HIV. You can walk into healthcare facilities and speak about them. The stigma, we need to do work around the stigma. Work including even seeing TV productions, local shows talking about HIV openly. We need to see that. We need to see musicians singing about HIV, and not in a stigmatizing and condescending way, but in a way that creates the hope and the awareness. Because we are yet, there was a time we made HIV everyone's business, and then we just stopped. I don't know why we stopped, because that stop has led us here. That it's so unfair that there are children being born with HIV in 2024. It's so unfair that there are people getting HIV infections in 2024 when it is very preventable, when PrEP and PEP is free. You see, so we need to normalize those conversations from social media, from mainstream media, from our friends and our families, religious places. Everybody needs to talk about HIV.
Yeah.
Because if we are going to end AIDS as a public health threat, it doesn't mean that on 1st of January 2031, there won't be HIV in the world. It means there won't be people dying of AIDS.
Yes.
Because what kills is AIDS and not HIV. So what we need to see is 0 deaths that are AIDS related.
Okay.
It is unfortunate that people are dying in an era that we have ARVs, in an era where science has proven that U equals U is working. That means if I'm undetectable, I cannot transmit HIV to another person. But we are yet to even make that message mainstream to every person. So me as a person living with HIV, I understand it. But when I tell an HIV negative person, they're like, what are you speaking about? And then now they kind of think that I am trying to make HIV look nice. No, there is nothing nice about a health condition, any health condition.
Yes.
But if there is a way that this health condition can be managed, if there is a way people can continue moving on with their normal lives, then I think that is a good thing.
There's a point you have mentioned, people die of AIDS, not HIV.
Yeah.
I think some people may not understand at what point does it change from HIV to get to AIDS.
Okay, so it's not a one-time process.
Yes.
So the early stage of HIV, the first stage is what we call the window period.
Yes.
That is the first between 14 to 90 days. So this is where the person has contracted a HIV infection, and it's knowing the person's DNA. Let me just put it in simpler terms like that. So it's just growing in the person's body, but they're not showing symptoms. Some people, depending on the immune system, might have like maybe a cough or something, but most times there are literally no symptoms. But this stage, still you can transmit HIV to another person.
Yes.
So after testing, so from day 91 to depending with how long it will take for opportunistic infections to show up, and you're not on treatment, that is what we call the asymptomatic stage. So this is where now the symptoms begin to show, and HIV on its own as a virus does not have standalone symptoms. What it does is weaken your immune system and open it to multiple infections.
Yes.
So those infections are what we call opportunistic infections that are some of them are very unique to HIV. Things like meningitis, things like TB, and we have 2 types of TB. We have the pulmonary TB that gets into the chest. Then we have the MDR TB, that is the multi-drug resistance TB, that can get anywhere on your body.
Yeah.
It can be in your brain, it can be in your liver, it can be in your stomach, it can literally go anywhere. It's very problematic.
Yes.
We have now the typhoids, the TB, I don't think malaria is an opportunistic infection.
No.
Yeah. We have the pneumonia. We have what we call Kaposi's sarcoma. It's a type of cancer-ish, but it's also very highly associated with HIV. We have now what we call shingles. Some people call it herpes zoster, that it's some sort of things that happen to your body. It's what happened to my face on the left side. So
that's why you have
that's why I have the scar. So it's, you know, they come in different situations. So if you're not on treatment, you will see bad things here at the asymptomatic stage. And your viral load keeps going high. So viral load is the level of virus. So because it's multiplying itself, it's happy, nothing is controlling it, everything is good. So now if you start treatment at the asymptomatic stage, the viral load goes down, the opportunistic infections are managed, and life goes on. If you don't, then it proceeds to what we call, not AIDS, I'm looking for the name, advanced HIV disease. So here is now where you will also, in case you didn't get like TB on the asymptomatic stage, now the MDR will likely show up there. The cryptococcal meningitis will show up there. The Kaposi's sarcoma will show up there. So when they show up there, then you know very well that at that point it is a very 50-50 situation.
Yeah.
And that is part of the reason why most people died of AIDS in the past, was because it will progress all the way, reach AIDS, you die because your viral load is very high and your CD4 count cells are low, because it eats the CD4 count cells literally. So when you reach that stage, if you start treatment at that stage, sometimes if you're lucky, you can come back to the HIV on its own as a virus. Sometimes you can die. So it's a very 50-50 situation.
Yeah.
So that is why we don't even say that people die of AIDS related. People don't die of AIDS per se, but the related illnesses.
Okay.
So the AIDS in itself is what kills people because it's the disease. Yeah.
So
Imezima.
wacha tu nitumie hii.
Tumia.
Okay.
Mweke. Then mimi nikifanya outro tuta nini tu. So I want to ask you about mother child, then ask you about dating, then we go to World AIDS Day, the theme, and what is planned for the day.
The theme is men and boys.
What men and
Boys. Like
boys.